The story of the game was nothing special, as it was just a normal mobile game. It followed the usual pay-to-win model with an auto-battle system, and the game was called Blessing of Miracle. The game itself was just another regular mobile game that didn't need much introduction, prompting the player to touch the screen to start. The person playing it asked why they played such a game. The reason was simple: the player liked the cool female characters, but they never thought they would actually get sucked into the game world. The protagonist did not spend much money or replay the game many times. In fact, they never even finished it once. Even worse, the player didn't even become a main character or a simple NPC in the game. Instead, they ended up as a background extra, a character that does not even appear in the game at all. Now, in this new world, the protagonist finds himself with a different name, looking at something by a vending machine. His new name in this world is Geomakang, where the Chinese characters mean Blade Demon. Suddenly, there is a loud impact, and a blue-haired person is shown getting hit. Geoma reacts with surprise, realizing the person he just accidentally bumped into was a woman. He wonders if he is alright as someone rushes to ask him if he is okay after the collision. The woman apologizes, and Geoma feels thankful that this game world, Blessing of Miracle, is set in Korea, so the names and places are mostly the same, just slightly changed. Because of this, adapting to the world was easy, even though he had to deal with something called an adolescent fee which beeped on a screen. A whole year passed just like that, and Geoma was living like a normal teenager, something he could not do in his past life. He almost forgot that this was actually a game world until the day he received a specific letter. He mutters, "I'm home," after using a card or code to unlock a door. As he enters, his parents greet him excitedly, calling him the pride of the Kang family and urging him to look at something. He looks down at an acceptance letter for Jokwon Academy for the 2034 academic year. His parents are extremely proud and excited about his admission, asking if he has packed his things for the next day. Geoma agrees to finish packing, while his parents celebrate their wonderful son. Geoma sighs, feeling that his small dream of a normal life is completely ruined, as it is already tomorrow. He sits heavily at his desk, knowing he cannot get out of going because his parents are too excited about it. He remembers asking them repeatedly if he could skip it, but they refused, and he thinks about how much of a pain this is, glancing at a photo where he seems happier. He wonders how the original Geomakang managed to get accepted into such a prestigious school, and the story of how it happened is explained. The explanation is that the original Geoma took the entrance exam right after unlocking his blessing last year, surprising others who couldn't believe it. Apparently, the original Geomakang unlocked his blessing just before Geoma, the protagonist, took over his body, passed the entrance exam for Jokwon Academy easily, making people wonder if the original guy was a genius. The narrative shifts to explaining what blessings are in this world. They are special powers humans have, similar to game skills. These blessings are shown as powerful figures with glowing swords and shields, representing the skills from the game. However, not everyone has a blessing. They are mostly inherited genetically, creating a clear difference between people. This genetic difference creates a social divide, separating nobles from commoners, and this divide is upheld by an institution for the elite. That institution is the Jokwon Academy, which was initially made to train heroes but has long become exclusive to prestigious hero families. Only recently did they introduce a special admission for students from non-hero families, which is how Geomakang got accepted. The protagonist wonders why heroes are needed in the first place, answering simply that there is a demon king. A huge, fiery red scene shows a massive explosion and menacing, dark landscapes confirming the threat of a demon king. Below this, there are various monstrous figures, including a dragon and other demon-like creatures, showing the enemies they might face. Geoma reflects that in this game world, they need heroes to fight this threat, which feels like being forced into mandatory military service all over again. He grumbles a bit about the status windows he still can't get used to, then thinks about the blessings. A blue flash appears, showing the details of Geoma's first blessing, which he can't get used to seeing. He checks the stats for the blessing of painlessness. It completely relieves all pain, but only for 30 seconds with a 12-hour cooldown. Geoma is frustrated, thinking it's ridiculous that he got into the academy with such a weak blessing, making him want to cry every time he reads it. He also remembers he has another blessing that he got when he took over the body. This second blessing is called the Blessing of the Blade God, which has an infinite duration and no cooldown, but it only activates under very specific conditions. Geoma notes the irony that his blessing is the Blade God's while his name means Blade Demon, and he wonders if this is some kind of joke since he never saw this blessing when he played the game. He finds the description for the blade god blessing disappointingly plain for such a grand name. The condition that stands out is that the blade must be 12 inches in length and less than 2 inches in width, leading him to a painful realization. The activation condition describes only one thing, a sashimi knife, making him exclaim if they expect him to start cutting fish in this new life too. Geoma leans back in frustration, thinking, "Man, forget it," concluding that life never goes the way one wants it to. The young man checked if he had packed everything for his big day, sighing as he realized something important was missing. He remembered clearly that he did not have a weapon for the academy. He recalled from the game he used to play that even the weakest E-rank armaments cost a lot of money, and average C-rank ones cost hundreds of millions of won. The A and S-rank armaments were considered priceless treasures, which was tough to think about since the tuition fee for this academy was already very high. He did not want to spend his own hard-earned money on equipment for a school he never really wanted to attend in the first place. However, if he showed up without a required item, he knew he would make a really bad first impression. He decided with a sigh that he would just go to the dollar store to get something. Suddenly, the words of his first teacher came back to his mind, the old man who always insisted on using only expensive Japanese-made sashimi knives. He wondered why he was thinking about that old guy now, remembering the teacher's strong belief, a true master never blames their tools. Then he was startled by someone addressing him. The instructor looked down at him sternly, demanding if the sashimi knives he was holding were really his weapon. The young man calmly answered, yes. The background showed a bunch of cheap knives with 30% OFF sale tags, contrasting sharply with the serious setting. It was admissions day, specifically the armament inspection, and the instructor thought students from rich families often played pranks. He was determined to start teaching discipline right away. The instructor yelled at the boy, asking if he took the academy for a joke, for showing up with only sashimi knives for the crucial class placement exam. The young man stood firm, telling the instructor that this was his armament. When the instructor shouted "boy," the student corrected him politely, "Sir." He explained that he was a special entrant from an ordinary family, and the tuition alone was a big burden on his parents. Asking them for an expensive weapon would make him a terrible son. The instructor noticed the color of the student's nameplate and realized he was a special entrant, which meant the tuition was indeed very steep for families like his. The instructor felt ashamed for scolding a thoughtful son, realizing the meaning behind the 30% sale tag he had seen earlier. He remembered the student's words. He believed only the weak blame their tools. The student continued his stern look, stating, "I believe only the weak blame their tools." The instructor thought that these were not the words of a normal teenager but carried the weight of someone who had reached the top of their field. The student stood tall, radiating power, impressing everyone observing the scene. The instructor was stunned by the boy's incredible resolve, even letting out a choked sob in realization. The instructor was completely won over, thinking he's goated. He then stated the student's name, Geoma Kang. Geoma presented his armament for inspection, and the instructor formally acknowledged it before Geoma thanked him. However, other students who saw the nameplate gasped that he was a special entrant. A group of noble-looking students whispered disdainfully, asking how such a lowly thing got in and remarking that he stinks. The instructor immediately shouted for silence and warned them about his temper. The instructor showed his fierce side, declaring he could be an angel or a devil depending on their behavior, to which the other students snapped to attention, answering, "Yes, sir." Geoma felt a bit shaken by the intensity, thinking it felt like he was back in boot camp. After that stressful inspection, Geoma found a quiet spot outside to rest, feeling awful from the experience, even though he knew this was coming. He was relieved he passed the inspection and skipped the entrance ceremony, now only facing the class placement exam, feeling completely exhausted. Despite his exhaustion, he looked around, realizing he was actually at a place he never imagined attending, the school where he would spend the next 3 years. The impressive campus of the Hero Training School, Jokwon Academy, was shown in full glory. Seeing the academy in person was so different from looking at pictures on his phone, as the place was massive, like a small city. He admitted the place was impressive, acknowledging their grandeur. This attendance was a huge jump from his past, where he had to drop out of high school due to family issues. Suddenly, a notification buzzed, reminding him the class placement examination would start soon. The announcement instructed all new students to gather at the training grounds by 1 p.m. Geoma felt it was important to try out his new knife before the exam. He realized he had never actually used a knife since arriving in this new world, as he never needed to before. He remembered his first teacher's old advice, never let go of your knife, not even for a day, even while sleeping. He was confident, having used knives for 2 decades, doubting he lost his edge in just a year. He decided to test the knife out, thinking, let's see, it's better than I expected. As he rubbed the knife against a small wooden block, a clear ting sound confirmed its sharpness. He smiled, feeling satisfied with the test, and then decided to try cutting a leaf. When he drew the knife, a massive surge of blue light and lightning erupted from the blade. System messages popped up, the armament condition was met, and it was activating the blessing of the blade god. The energy crackled violently, and a warning appeared, your body's grade is too low. The young man stood there, stunned, as further warnings flashed, your armament's grade is too low. The system started applying a limitation to synchronize the blessing with the user as a loud zing sounded. He just thought, all I did was unsheath the knife. His face showed shock as the red warning intensified, and it activated my blessing. The synchronization completed with a red glow. A strange sound faded as the dark background slowly transitioned. A bright blue light shone with the message, may the blessing of God be with you, while below, the instructor's eyes were wide with shock. Intense purple lightning sparked around the blade. The world seemed to glitch and crackle around the boy as he held the knife, surrounded by red and purple energy. A deafening sound erupted as the force seemed to shake everything around him. More chaotic sounds of pain and distress filled the air as the power intensified. He felt an overwhelming force, trying to shout "Die!" but he managed to quickly roll away just as a massive flash occurred. A blinding golden light erupted, momentarily washing out the scene. The light subsided, revealing massive shards of what looked like broken reality, with the academy grounds visible through the cracks, accompanied by a deep rumble. The boy stood in the center of this broken space, floating slightly, leaving onlookers with huge question marks of confusion. He managed to stammer out, "What the F asterisk asterisk asterisk?" Then, focusing on his hand and the dropped knife, he questioned, "What is this?" The knife slipped from his hand with a clank as it hit the ground in the distorted space. A huge whoosh sounded as a massive blue light enveloped the student again, pulling him upwards. There were shocked exclamations from the onlookers as the energy subsided. The young man found himself suddenly back outside, by the bench, hearing chirping birds and thinking, I'm back. He realized the moment he let go of the knife, everything returned to normal, leaving him bewildered. He clutched his hand in pain with a throbbing sensation, exclaiming, oh, it hurts! He understood that his blessing activated, but he was confused because the blessing of the blade god caused the entire world to break apart. He grimaced, noting the rebound from using the blessing was incredibly intense, unlike the previous blessing of painlessness, which only gave him mild muscle aches. If this was the effect every time, he thought it was useless. His hand was visibly trembling, and he concluded, it's useless. A system beep sounded, calling all new students to the training grounds immediately. Jioma, still unsteady, decided he should pick up the knife. He thought he couldn't just leave a knife lying around, even if picking it up hurt. He tried to reassure himself that maybe it only hurt so much because it was the first time. He mumbled that he would be fine as he bent down, trembling slightly, to pick up the knife with a firm grip. As his hand tightened on the handle with a grip, the pain instantly returned, much worse this time. He screamed in agony, realizing he was absolutely not fine, and was violently thrown backward by an unseen force in the training area. The location shifted to the grand training grounds, where the crowd was cheering loudly. The area was a massive coliseum-like structure, and some important-looking adults were talking in the upper area, buzzing with excitement. 2 older men and a noble-looking person were chatting. One mentioned spending a fortune for his child's admission, confirming the high costs involved. The conversation shifted as one of the older men exclaimed, "Ooh, my, look who is here!" Recognizing someone important, the newly arrived figure was introduced as Siegfried von Nibelung, the 7 Stars hero and Blade Emperor. The observers noted that he was the descendant of Aaron A. Nibelung, who was the prized disciple of the founding hero, Valor Jokwin. Siegfried looked sternly ahead. Another gentleman loudly commented on Siegfried's powerful presence, and they agreed to return to their seats to watch the proceedings. Siegfried sighed, and then another person arrived, greeting him, "Oh, long time no see, Sieg." The newcomer was Medea Poison, the 7 Stars hero's sage, who remarked it had been half a century since they last met. Siegfried addressed her formally as Medea. She then commented that her attire was inappropriate for someone who calls herself the Academy's director, suggesting her 70 years hadn't been well spent on looking mature. Medea playfully countered that a woman can't be blamed for wanting to stay beautiful until she dies, even offering to use her blessing to make Sieg 10 years younger. Siegfried retorted that she was pushing 70 but still immature, stating true value comes from character. Medea giggled, calling him a stuck-up geezer who hadn't changed in 50 years. Siegfried muttered a retort about her being a hag, but then admitted she surprised him, saying he never thought she would show up here. Medea continued, noting that Siegfried used to hate being around snobs like the ones filling the stands, who were now laughing. Siegfried responded with a simple HM before Medea asked if he really cared a lot about his granddaughter. Siegfried simply stated, "Looks like it'll begin soon." The scene shifted to the general student body gathering, with some students excitedly greeting each other while the protagonist stood alone, noting the chatter. Geomao looked around, feeling completely out of place, thinking, "Am I really the only one with black hair here? Not to mention, I'm a special entrant amidst all these nobles." He overheard whispers about the lowly thing. The background students from noble families mocked him, calling him a lowly thing and saying he stinks. Geomao noticed their malice, thinking, "Lowly thing? Huh." As murmurs spread through the crowd, someone pointed out, "Is that?" Students started murmuring and looking over in awe as someone important arrived. A few onlookers expressed surprise and excitement. Everyone focused as a figure arrived, making a distinct clack sound with their steps. The figure stepping forward was a girl with striking bright cyan hair, radiating power. Her identity was revealed. Abel von Nibelung, the Blade Emperor's granddaughter. The protagonist recognized her instantly, realizing this was the main heroine of the game, and also the very reason he spent money on the game. The story starts by explaining the subspace, which is a special place made by Valor Joquen for the Academy. In this subspace, students feel pain from wounds like in real life, but their bodies are actually safe. Because the physical body is not harmed in the subspace, even killing someone there is usually ignored. This makes the event feel like a real fight. The subspace battles have been a tradition at the Academy, but this year, the format has been changed to a battle royale. Even though this is happening, the main character wants to stay safe. The groups for the Battle Royale are divided into 10 students each. The ranking for the class placement will be based on who survives the longest in these groups. One of the teachers mentioned that there are no limits on weapons for the exam, which made someone ask if the rich nobles will have a big advantage. The other teacher agreed but said this was the best she could manage. The reason for this is that the Academy gets most of its money from those nobles, making it very hard to get any new plans approved. The teacher sighed, remembering how hard it was to get the special admission scheme passed. Someone brings up the special admission scheme, and then the main character thinks about a girl. He thinks she is so beautiful that he thought such beauty only existed in cartoons, but now he knows he was wrong. Many students are seen trying to get the attention of this beautiful girl, but the main character knows better than to try. He remembers playing the game where he knew this girl, Abel von Nibelung, was meant to be with the game's main character. The main character thinks that beautiful people only end up with worthy partners, and since he is a special entrant, she is way out of his league. He decides he should keep his distance and remain unnoticed. His plan for the future is clear: peace, order, and safety. He wants to finish his studies smoothly, get an easy job, and live a safe life. He thinks heroes can just take care of the world's safety because he is still upset about something related to that. He wonders what easy jobs are available for him to aim for. Suddenly, an announcement starts to explain the rules for the class placement exam for the 783rd group of students. The exam will indeed be a battle royale format this year. The rules state that among the 10 randomly grouped students, the highest scorer becomes a star, the second and third are dragons, the fourth to seventh are wolves, and the last 3 are ordinaries. These ranks decide their class placement. Individual scores are automatically calculated, and there is no time limit, just like in the game. The main character's goal is simple: be an ordinary and take things easy. The subspace generator is activated, and the exam officially begins. The main character internally says he won't even draw his knife if he can avoid it. Fast forward, and some groups have already finished their exams quickly, showing high ranks. Group 24 finished, with Rachel at rank 1. Group 47 also finished quickly, with Ryojo Saki as rank 1. The teachers watching mention that this cohort includes the granddaughter of a powerful person, along with kin of the Spear Saint and the Broken Bow, making the outcome almost certain. The teachers discuss how fast the results were, especially since Abel von Nibelung achieved a top 10 history score with just a C-rank armament, showing she wanted a fair fight. They say it is a natural result for someone with the Nibelung bloodline. As the exam seems almost over, one teacher wants to leave, but the other points out there is still one group left. The first teacher says he has no interest in the offspring of those noble swine and says goodbye. As the teacher leaves, the other calls out a farewell, seeing him off to the afterlife in a slightly joking way. Then, a huge dark energy seems to appear. The supervisors feel a strange sensation that didn't come from the auditorium. One of them wonders if students always fall out of the subspace like that, and they call for medics immediately. Meanwhile, back in the subspace, the main character notes that the outcome was decided from the start, but he seems to have landed in a nightmare group. He is grouped with the Wicked Twins from the Iron King family, known for their cruelty. The Wicked Twins are shown to be toying with their victims, and it has been going on for 30 minutes already. The main character wonders if they are ignoring him because he looks weak. The main character feels pain and realizes he is almost done with whatever he was doing. One of the twins is shocked, realizing the other twin, Jun, has already killed 4 people by himself. The other twin, Shun, says he will let Jun have the last girl, who looks scared and is just standing in the corner. Shun then notices the girl and says she is his type, wondering what kind of scream she will make. The girl who was supposed to be Jun's victim says that Shun is her brother, but he is a creep. Shun asks where he should start tearing her apart. The main character, seeing this cruelty, shouts that even though it's a subspace, they have no right to go this far. He realizes he jumped in without thinking. The Wicked Twins look up, surprised to see another person, and check his nameplate. They see he is a special entrant, meaning he is a lowborn, and tell Jun to handle him quickly, ordering him to rip out his tongue too for insulting them. Jun asks if he should use the blessing of painlessness, but the other twin says no, as they have been torturing others for 30 minutes anyway. He says 30 seconds won't change anything. The main character thinks about his sashimi knife. He knows that once he holds it, it will activate his blessing. He curses, thinking, "You made me laugh," and decides he must make it quick for them. He needs to hold out for just 30 seconds to make something happen. He decides to use the blessing of painlessness, which relieves all pain for 30 seconds. Then he activates the blessing of the Blade God, needing to use this knife or be finished. He thinks he needs to use this knife to cut through that towering mass, but he clarifies in his mind that he is not cutting a fish, but a person. This is a big difference for him. He recalls a conversation where someone asked if the sashimi knives used by gangsters in movies could really cut people, not just fish. The other person angrily replied that movies are not real and not even God could do that. Now, with his blessing active, the words echo, slash, and it shall be cut. A bright light flashes. The light shoots forward like a giant beam, piercing the sky. As the beam cuts through, the ground below shatters. The 2 supervisors react with shock, exclaiming, "Impossible." The subspace environment is shown shattering like glass all around. As the shattered pieces fall, other people watching the exam react with murmurs. The supervisors feel the impact and wonder if students always fall out of the subspace like that, demanding medics check the vitals of those students. The scene shifts back to the start of the chapter, where the title card for Episode 2, Class Placement Exam 1, appears. The narrator states that the outcome was decided from the start, but luck brought him into a group of nightmares, the Wicked Twins. The Wicked Twins, from the Iron King family, are introduced as being gifted but extremely cruel. The main character internally calls them bastards as he watches them toy with their victims for 30 minutes. He wonders if they are ignoring him because he looks too weak. He shouts at them, calling them hey, asterisk holes. He declares that even in the subspace, they have no right to go that far. The twins are momentarily confused, realizing there is another person there. They check his nameplate and see he is a special entrant, meaning he is a lowborn. They smirk, and one twin says he will handle the special entrant, Jun agreeing that it won't take long. The twin adds that since the main character insulted them, Jun should rip out his tongue too. The main character realizes he messed up by jumping in without thinking. Jun's partner agrees that ripping out the tongue sounds good, and the main character panics, wondering what to do now. He considers using the blessing of painlessness, but then remembers the twins have been torturing others for 30 minutes, so 30 seconds of no pain won't really help much. He realizes he must use his sashimi knife. He knows that holding it will activate his blessing, which conflicts with his motto of peace, order, safety. He curses again, saying that he hasn't even been a full day since committing to that motto, but now he has to fight. He activates the blessing of the Blade God to counter the pain it might bring. The twin attacking him screams, asking what the hell he is doing with a kitchen knife. The main character internally says he must use this knife to cut through that towering mass. He focuses, saying he needs to cut not a fish but a person. This internal dialogue flashes back to a past conversation about movie gangsters and their knives. He remembers someone shouting that movies aren't real and not even God could pull off cutting people with those knives. Now he prepares to prove them wrong with the mantra, slash, and it shall be cut. A bright flash occurs, followed by intense blue and white light that seems to be tearing through space. The scene changes to a close-up of the attacker's face, filled with rage as he screams, "You're dead, loser." The main character, now enveloped in blue energy, prepares his attack, "May the blessing of God." The shot shows the twin lying defeated on the ground, with the main character standing over him, glowing eyes showing his activated power. The final words are, "Be with you." The final image shows the main character standing amidst fire and debris, having clearly defeated the attacker with a powerful slash. A man asks his boss about why gangsters always use sashimi knives. The boss immediately gets angry, throws a knife that sticks into the wall, and tells the man to call him sir. The boss then asks why he is asking such a strange question while staring down at a fish. He explains that his first teacher was a former gangster who cut off his own hand to atone for his past and opened a sashimi restaurant to bring joy with his knife. The boss continues to explain his teacher's skill with knives, then brings up the gangster knife question again, which the other man asks about. The boss then explains that with a normal kitchen knife, stabbing someone is bad because the skin contracts, but a narrow sashimi knife allows for stabbing and pulling out easily. The other person asks why they can't just cut like they do with fish, but the boss yells that cutting fish is easy because they are flat, unlike cutting something upright like bread. The other man suggests the boss is just not skilled enough, making the boss explode in anger and strike him down, saying even the blade god couldn't pull off what he just did. After the attack, a red and blue glowing force surrounds the defeated figure. The man who was just hit is seen floating in the subspace, his arm apparently injured, while the glowing figure stands over him. Close-ups show the shocked faces of three onlookers, the one who was hit, the man who seemed to be in charge, and a girl with pink hair. A figure in a suit, holding a glowing knife, stands ready for another attack above a glowing circle on the ground. The man who was hit cries out in pain as blood starts splattering. He screams about his arm as he is clearly in terrible pain and shocked by the damage. The attacker steps closer, the sound of his footsteps heard as the injured man cries out in fear. The injured man yells for the attacker to stay back while he is clearly suffering from the wound. The attacker crushes him underfoot, and the injured man weakly calls for help. With glowing red eyes, the injured man yells for somebody to help him. Another man, sweating and shocked, reacts to the scene and someone calls out for Jae-jun's help. The injured man screams that his arm has been cut. He screams for help again, clearly about to lose consciousness, as the word slit is emphasized. Thinks he is going to die as the attacker prepares a final blow. The attacker moves toward the fallen student. A man in blue robes stands above, looking shocked by the events. A loud splat sound effect occurs, and a shocked man sweats. A close-up shows the injured student's face, filled with horror. Someone screams out for Shun. The attacker walks away breathing heavily, while the pink-haired girl looks on in stunned silence. One of the shocked onlookers calms the other down, noting they are in subspace, and wonders who the attacker is, thinking that even though Shun isn't dead, the attacker's movements seemed awkward despite his success. The attacker stands over the fallen Shun, and the onlookers observe that his heavy breathing and shaking suggest it might have been pure luck. They realize that the real danger is the knife, and figure Shun lost because he let his guard down. The man who is observing thinks that if that is the case, he must reveal his own full potential using both hands. He activates his armaments, and the armaments connect with a loud sound. He activates 3 blessings. Blessing of Resolve for increased defense, Blessing of Intervention for 200% increased jumping power, and Blessing of Vigor for drastically increased punching power. With his powers activated, he prepares to fight, fueled by the blessings. He declares that a lowborn like the attacker could never have such power, powering up intensely. He challenges the attacker, stating that even an S-rank armament couldn't pierce his defense, unlike Shun. The attacker, Geoma, is seen mumbling a countdown from 23 down to 21. As the countdown continues, the man with enhanced power yells, asking what the attacker is doing standing still. The attacker leaps toward the powered-up opponent, asking if he is saying his final prayers. The attacker states he will crush his skull right where he stands. A dynamic shot shows the attacker's intent to strike the powered-up opponent's face. The attacker confirms his intention to crush the opponent's skull. The countdown continues, 7, 6, 5, leading to a close-up of an eye. The opponent wonders what is happening as he is suddenly pierced multiple times by glowing blades. A close-up shows the extent of the multiple stabs to the powered-up opponent's body. The opponent coughs blood trembling as the attacker continues his countdown, 3. The attacker mumbles 2 while standing over the defeated opponent. He says 1, then 0 as the opponent's eyes fade to black. The system message confirms that the blessing of painlessness is no longer active, followed by a flash of light. A large red graphic shows intense screaming sounds. The scene shifts back to the subspace where the attacker stands over the defeated opponents, and someone whispers the name Phantom. The title card for the series appears, The Academy's Sashimi Sword Master. The credit text and Episode 3 title, Class Placement Exam 2, appear, followed by a close-up of an eye opening. The character wakes up, hearing a slight rustling sound in what seems to be a sterile environment. The main character, Jiomao, wakes up in a hospital bed, groaning as he tries to move. A bespectacled man bursts into the room, shaking things as he approaches. The bespectacled man exclaims that the student is awake, while Jiomao looks at him with a blank expression. Jiomao stares intently at the approaching group, recognizing them even though they've never met. He recognizes them as members of the Seven Stars. Description continues, identifying them as the heroes who defeated the Demon King's army commander 50 years ago. The white-haired hero, Siegfried, asks how he is feeling, while the female director, Media Poison, smiles. Media Poison introduces herself, and Jiomao looks confused as to why these legendary figures are present. Siegfried asks Jiomao his name, and he replies that he is Jiomao Kang, sir. Siegfried gets straight to the point, addressing Jiomao by name. Siegfried asks Jiomao what he has done, while Jiomao sits confused on the hospital bed. Jiomao reflects on the sensation from the subspace fight, realizing it felt like him, but not really him, showing the duality of his actions. He confirms it was him, and a close-up shows his serious, contemplative expression. Siegfried is shown holding up something shiny, possibly the knife Jiomao used, with a blinding light around it. Jiomao internally acknowledges that he shouldn't mess with such a powerful monster, even in subspace, and that the twins crossed a line, but he also went overboard. He states he will accept any punishment without complaint, as Siegfried looks intensely at him. Media tells Siegfried to ease up, saying Jiomao is just a kid. Media affectionately touches Jioma's shoulder, explaining that he was the one who unblocked Siegfried's acupoints while he was unconscious. Media calls the old man hard-headed and asks Siegfried to forgive Jioma for her sake, while she giggles charmingly. Siegfried rigidifies, telling Media not to reveal that information, while she calls Jioma a brave lad. Jioma wonders why the Blade Emperor helped him, feeling that his body now feels incredibly light and airy. Media hushes Jioma and tells him that the faculty reviewed the footage of what happened. Footage is shown where Jioma seemingly throws himself into danger to protect a helpless girl, leading Media to dramatically declare he was like a prince from a fairy tale. Siegfried cuts in, simply stating Jioma was a hero, which causes Media to react playfully, earning a sharp ahem from Siegfried. Media is told by Siegfried to have some decorum, and they assure Jioma they won't penalize him for his actions during the exam. Media happily explains that the twins only got in because their family bribed the elders, and thankfully, they decided to drop out anyway. Jioma says, I see, relieved that he won't have to see the twins around school, while Media giggles, saying it serves them right. Jioma is then told they are only there to inform him of something important, and he asks, huh? Oh, yes! They tell him that Jioma he is the top scorer, and Jioma looks surprised. They congratulate him loudly, leaving Jioma looking utterly bewildered. Jioma reacts with confusion and shock, completely overwhelmed by the news. The scene starts with a sigh outside a large, grand academy building. Inside, the academy director, a woman with green hair and glasses, sips her drink, looking troubled. She mentioned she has been the director for almost 2 decades and nothing like this has ever happened before. The director dismisses someone by saying no, thank you, as the top scorer candidate, Jioma, stands before her. The director and an older man react strongly to someone or something, pointing towards Jioma and the black-haired young man. The director expresses shock, addressing Jioma and stating that they are talking about joining the star class, asking if he understands the importance of that. The director then turns to the older man, suggesting that even if the elders complained, the appointment of the top scorer is determined by the subspace itself. The older man is shown looking down at the young man who seems to be recovering on a medical bed, while the director insists the subspaces must be honored. The young man looks intense. The young man firmly rejects an offer, saying, even so, no thank you, as the older man and the director approach him with expressions of disbelief. The older man, identified as Sieg, speaks to the young man, expressing that this situation is not suitable for him. Sieg confronts the director, accusing her of being bitter because Jioma was the top scorer instead of her granddaughter, reminding her that she saw the video. He calls her a fool for questioning the subspace, which holds the will of the founding hero. Sieg declares that since the academy has recognized the young man as the top scorer, they must honor that decision. but then trails off, saying, "It's just." Sieg reflects that he would have understood if the young man had outstanding technique, impressive physique, or vast experience, but none of those seemed to apply. He recalls the young man's movements in the video, which seemed to embody something profound. The narration emphasizes the essence of cutting shown in the young man's actions. Sieg realizes the young man embodies the very essence of cutting, something he has chased his whole life. He remembers the intense moment of light and energy during the display. The visuals highlight the mastery of the blade shown by the young man in the test. However, Sieg admits he felt a strange unease when he later unlocked the boy's acupoints, as he saw the young man lying on the ground with the director nearby. Sieg observes that the boy's body felt soft and untrained, suggesting it held something it was never meant to hold. Sieg confesses to feeling competitive again at his old age, especially since the top scorer is the same age as his granddaughter. He mentally praised the boy's handsome face and heroic actions saving a woman, even wishing he were 10 years younger so the boy might have saved him. The director interrupts Sieg's thoughts, asking him what he thinks, and then teasingly asks what young people call people like him. Sieg asks what they call people like him, as the director sets her cup down with a sharp sound, blushing slightly. The director pushes him to say it, and Sieg internally thinks the term must be old-fashioned. The director's cup clacks down, and she gets flustered with repeated heartbeat sound effects. She visibly reacts strongly to the implied term, blushing deeply before the cup dramatically cracks when she apparently chokes on her drink. The cup cracks fully as the director makes a choking sound. This is the title card for Episode 4, Struggles at the Academy 1. Protagonist, Gyo-ma, is seen standing alone at the top of a grand staircase inside the academy. He pauses in front of a sign that reads Wolf Class, thinking to himself. Gyo-ma reflects that the class placement was the best compromise he could get, even though he wanted the ordinary class. A voice protests that the top scorer cannot be in the ordinary class. Someone questions why, citing the academy's supposed equality, but another voice firmly states, "Anyway, you just can't." The director, sweating nervously, offers to keep his class placement a secret in exchange for his compliance. The director worries the elders will be even angrier if he is placed in the ordinary class. Gyo-ma internally states his real desire was a peaceful study life away from the top tiers, then clears his throat, ready to address the situation. Gyo-ma accepts the outcome, noting that this result is still within the expected range, before he suddenly bangs open a door loudly. A wide shot of the lecture hall shows students reacting with a sudden hush as Gyo-ma enters in shock. Some students whisper amongst themselves, while a female student with green hair and another student stare. Gyo-ma's name tag showing Gyo-ma Kang is visible. Some students laugh about the situation, finding it amazing, while Gyo-ma observes the general chatter around the large hall, feeling ignored. He thinks it would have been better if people hadn't paid attention to him in the first place, but he accepts that the director must have kept his class a secret. He settles into his desk. Gyo-ma feels relieved, thinking introverts are meant to stay out of the spotlight, and knocks on his desk, satisfied. A red-haired girl approaches him timidly, thanking him for helping her before the tests. Gyo-ma is confused by her formality, wondering why she is acting so stiff since they are the same age, and she looks uncertainly at him. Chloe blushes, referring to the test, and Gyo-ma confirms he was the one. Gyo-ma questions why she is being so formal, saying anyone would have done the same, while inwardly admitting he only helped to protect himself and feels like a hypocrite. He decides to change the subject and properly introduce himself, feeling awkward about his self-deception. Gyo-ma introduces himself as Gyo-ma Kang, surprised they ended up in the same class, and Chloe introduces herself as Chloe, seemingly pleased to meet him. Gyo-ma pauses, not recognizing the name Chloe, thinking that he only remembered up to the first half of the original game. He realizes that since the second half of the game mostly involved fighting demons, it wouldn't make sense for a new character like her to be introduced then. He is surprised. He concludes that Chloe must be a background extra, just like him, and asks her to keep the exam incident a secret. Chloe readily agrees. Chloe starts to say something else, but they are interrupted by a loud command for everyone to get seated. Gyo-ma gestures for Chloe to sit down as the class is called to order, and she reluctantly agrees to talk later. The instructor slams a book down and begins the welcome speech, congratulating the students and reminding them to embrace the honor of carrying forward the legacy of the founding hero, Valor Jokwon. The instructor, Wonbin Lee, is introduced as the tough-looking gentle soul wolf class instructor, and he announces a light physical training session to start. Wonbin Lee tells them they have half an hour to change and gather at the training grounds, and one student immediately asks what the training will involve. Wonbin Lee cheerfully lists the workout: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and 10 laps, which some students find easy while others react with dismay. Wonbin Lee concludes by telling them to change and meet him, and Geoma wonders if the instructor is trying to make everyone go bald. Geoma approaches the instructor, asking how he knows his name, but then dismisses the thought, feeling he needs an escape from the scheduled training. Geoma tries to sound confident, suggesting the training is beneath the top student, while the instructor nods, thinking. The director appears, reminding the instructor that Geoma is the top scorer and has permission to attend any class, suggesting he join the star class training instead. Geoma is inwardly furious at the director. Thinking only of keeping his score as secret from the director, Geoma quickly improvises an excuse to avoid the rigorous training. He tells the instructor he just needs a quick trip to the bathroom and that the stiffness in his body means the training is actually what he needs. The instructor is pleased with his spirit. The scene shifts to the outdoor training grounds where students are running, breathing heavily. They are told to keep moving and counting their steps as some students start to struggle and giggle. Geoma struggles, thinking he is going to die, while others, like Chloe, seem to be keeping a steady pace behind him. Chloe shouts at the struggling students to go faster, while Geoma falls further behind, thinking he might die. Chloe checks on Geoma, who looks terrible, but he forces a smile and assures her he is fine. Geoma asks Chloe how many laps she has done, noting she was coming from far behind earlier. Chloe replies she is on her 9th lap. Chloe's dark eyes stare intensely as Geoma seems surprised by her speed. Geoma is shocked by her number of laps, but Chloe encourages him to keep going. Chloe runs off ahead, leaving Geoma watching her speed, and he silently processes this strange encounter. Geoma continues running, out of breath, while other students rush past him in the background. It has been 1 week since the main character entered the academy, and his stomach is already making loud rumbling sounds. He is inside his room, looking at the golden sunset outside the building. The hunger sound continues, and his hand smashes down onto a table where empty water bottles lay, making a loud bang sound and causing him to curse under his breath. The character wakes up fully, clearly starving, with his stomach rumbling again, showing that 1 week at the academy has brought an unexpected big problem. The scene shifts to a large, fancy hall where many students are gathered, chatting loudly, probably for a class or assembly. A group of students loudly expresses how hungry they are and orders a stir-fried pork dish very urgently from the counter. The main character approaches the counter, but when he is asked for meal tickets, he stares intensely, showing shock as he did not expect to need tickets for food. He realizes that the food here is not free, and he quickly tells the person to wait for his stir-fried pork rice bowl while he rushes off to find something. The character is left looking serious as he sees a menu board displaying extremely high prices for simple food items, like 50,000 won for a basic rice bowl. A full menu is shown with prices that are surprisingly high, confirming the 50,000 won price tag, which is about 40 USD, making him contemplate the situation deeply. He clearly expresses his shock at the outrageous price of 50,000 won for stir-fried pork, while in a separate vision, a single drop falls in a dark, blue space. He drinks the cheap water he has, only for his memory to snap him back into reality with a loud thunk as he punches his bed in frustration. Now wide awake and angry, he complains that the prices make no sense and he is almost out of money. He regrets not accepting the money offered before, realizing he has been surviving only on the cheapest water from the campus mart, making him miss the army's free meals. He flops back onto his bed, groaning, wishing for some kind of blessing that could just make hunger go away. Suddenly, a system notification flashes before his eyes, showing an update to the blessing of the Blade God, mentioning his body grade has improved and restrictions on his blade have lessened. The details of the blessing update are displayed, and he realizes this new system message always appears when he thinks about getting a blessing, confirming his body has changed. He gets out of bed, stepping onto the floor, looking at himself in a mirror in the dimly lit room. Looking at his reflection, he notices he has made physical progress, looking more muscular now. He wonders if this change is because the Blade Emperor unlocked his acupoints, feeling like he has evolved into a completely new body, though the blessing is still focused on sashimi knives. He thinks that even though he was terrified of knives before, he now feels uneasy without one, and he stares at 2 long, thin knives resting on a table. He scratches his head, feeling proud of his newfound comfort with blades, wondering if this is a side effect of the blessing. There is a sudden knock at the door, making him stop his thoughts and look towards the sound with surprise. He opens the door to see Chloe standing there, looking nervous and blushing slightly. Chloe apologizes if she disturbed him while he was resting, and he asks why she came by, claiming he was just lying on his bed. Chloe explains she hasn't seen him in the school canteen all week and was worried he might be sick, but he claims he just doesn't like eating food made by others, while a ghostly figure laughs behind him. He quickly covers up his odd comment about hating others' food by saying, "Yep, so don't worry about it." Chloe then suggests they go to the campus mart to get ingredients and cook dinner together, which surprises him, but he quickly agrees, realizing she is asking him to share a meal. He excitedly accepts, boasting that he is good at cooking, and tells her they should go, asking her to wait for him as her dorm is on the other side. The title card appears, The Academy's Sashimi Sword Master Episode 5, Struggles at the Academy 2. Later that night, in the kitchen, Chloe exclaims how good the food Gioma cooked is while he sits across from her looking pleased. He is happy she likes it and notes how fast he prepared it, to which Chloe replies that all she ever had was boiled fish and never tried anything like this. Chloe then asks if she can check his fridge, and he agrees, saying she must really like fish, and he explains he grew up by the seaside. He proudly states that fish is his specialty, and Chloe seems impressed, saying it is great and that she has been itching to use a knife, thinking cutting fish might clear her head. He pauses, thinking about a problem, and then the words "blessing of the blade god" appear with an intense flow. A flash occurs as he asks if she has anything longer than a kitchen knife, because using kitchen knives for cooking feels wrong when he uses knives as armament. He calls out Gioma, with a slightly annoyed face when she doesn't immediately understand. Chloe misunderstands and pulls out a glowing, decorative sword, asking if that will be okay, which makes him backtrack quickly. He tells her to forget it and that the kitchen knife will do, thinking to himself that he has no other choice, even though he was once called the best knife master in Korea. He prepares himself, activating the blessing of painlessness before stating he will finish preparing the fish in 30 seconds while Chloe watches, slightly taken aback. A close-up shows his intense, glowing eyes, and he thinks, "They used to call me the best knife master in Korea. I've got this." The blessing of the blade god, culinary activates, and a swift, glowing slice moves across the fish. The scene shows the cutting board instantly clean, proving his skill, and the narration states it took only 21 seconds. He proudly presents his work scaling, deboning, gutting, and filleting the sea bream in just 21 seconds while Chloe reacts with amazement, making a little yum sound. He feels this might be the finest work he's ever produced. Chloe asks him how he got so good at cooking, and he explains he used to work part-time at a Japanese restaurant. When he asks if she knows what part-time means and she doesn't, he apologizes, realizing the social class difference between them. He then tells her he is glad she liked his cooking. Chloe happily nods and offers to wash the dishes since he cooked. He agrees, and as she starts washing with big splashes, he feels satisfied after finally eating a full meal, looking out the window at the beautiful night moon. He reflects that he couldn't be happier now that he is full. His peace is shattered by a loud shatter sound, and he quickly turns around, apologizing awkwardly as Chloe seems upset. He realizes Chloe must have broken something because she has never washed dishes before, thinking he used to be like that too at her age. He rushes over as he hears a thud, seeing that in her haste, Chloe knocked over his desk items and flipped open a book. He stares at the open book, realizing it is a diary, and sees writing with cute stickers. He observes the bubbly handwriting and decides he better put it back, thinking she is just like other girls her age, but the book accidentally flips open to the next page. The next page reveals a passage about how the person who saved her during the placement exam was Gioma Kang, and her heart was fluttering, which makes him realize something. He looks at the writing and thinks that's adorable, realizing why she couldn't talk to him. He thinks maybe he should look just a little more before flipping another page, and the word Gioma appears. As he reads the next page, he is shocked to see it filled entirely with "I love you" written repeatedly, causing him to exclaim, "Wah." The shock intensifies as the background fills with red "I love you" writings, showing his horrified reaction. The intensity of the realization causes another shatter effect, indicating a mental break or extreme surprise. Chloe stands in the messy room, looking at him, and asks if he saw what was on the page he just read. A warning is shown that the episode has scenes of child abuse, so viewers should be careful. Hero families kill demons for glory. These families get praise from society and make their powerful position solid. But in this big hierarchy, there are always some powerful people who use their authority wrongly to hurt weaker people. As these families became too powerful for justice, one hero family came up to handle the darkness. This family was called the Auditor das Sicilia, a family linked to shadows but serving the light, keeping order by assassination. People born into the auditor family go through mental training even before they become teenagers. They are taught to hide their feelings and go through tough training. This hard training twisted their insides and left a deep, dark shadow in their hearts. With their spirit broken and feelings very quiet, Chloe came of age to join the academy. At Jokwon Academy, students get put into classes based on how strong they are. Even though the auditors were strong enough for the dragon class or higher, their dark work kept them in the normal class because of a deal with the academy. The rule for them was simple: do not stand out. Even the 3 happy years of youth were taken away by the family, and Chloe accepted her life as an assassin without any complaints. She thought there was nothing she could do to change it. However, she met a certain boy, and things changed. A fight in a subspace happened, and even though the deaths were not real, Chloe was scared of facing death for the first time. But then, there was another one. Before her expected fate, Chloe accepted death calmly because she saw no point in fighting for nothing, which is what she was taught. It felt like the sun shone through dark clouds and lit up her cold heart, causing a burning feeling inside her. A blade was swung with a clear goal. A blade used to protect someone else. The boy took the knife to defend her, which reminded her of a fairy tale she read long ago, hidden under her pillow. A story where a prince rescues a princess locked in a castle made her cheeks turn red, and a warm feeling spread in her chest. This new, soft, and hazy feeling grew inside her. In that moment, Chloe thought this must be love. A character, feeling bad, wonders where things went wrong, maybe when he looked at a teenage girl's innocent thoughts, or when he followed her just for food. He tried to be friendly, saying the moon looked pretty and thanking her for a great meal before leaving. Chloe suddenly stops him, dropping her polite manner and acting totally different, making him wonder if she has eyes on the back of her head. When he is asked if he saw anything, he nervously agrees, which leads to a surprising confrontation. He realizes they are on the 4th floor, where jumping would break all his bones, and there is only one way out. He sees her coming towards him, looking like she is in a daze. He notices her lifeless pupils and eyes that are cloudy red, confirming she has become a yandere, possibly due to unresolved trauma triggered by reading his diary. He thinks this is dangerous, as she will surely chase him to death, and he must use this moment to survive. Her bloodlust is scarier than the Mao brothers. He worries that nothing works out for him at this academy and needs a plan fast. His sashimi knife is in his room, and going for the kitchen knife is too risky. Here she comes. He wanted things to be peaceful, but now he has system messages popping up. Exercising ingenuity increased his mental grade, and his actions will temporarily look intimidating. He also got a limitation synchronization and the blessing of the blade god activated. He swings his box cutter with the blessing active as Chloe attacks with her glowing sword. The narration states, "May the blessing of God be with you," as the protagonist prepares for the clash. He blocks her attack with a powerful move, yelling that he wanted a peaceful resolution. The system messages confirm his ingenuity, applying limitations and activating the blade god's blessing. He unleashes a powerful shouting slash as the air glows intensely. He blocks the attack again, determined to fight. The scene focuses on the serious look in his eyes and then Chloe's. He calls out her name, telling her that her hair is a bit long. He then says, "Allow me to cut it," as bright red slashes cross the dark background, showing the resulting fight. And the video starts with a warning to read on a specific website and an invitation to join a Discord server. And later, 2 characters are sitting on a bench outside at night, one with bright blue hair looking sternly at the other. And the blue-haired girl asks the boy if he knows her because she knows his name. And the boy seems hesitant, while the girl leans closer with a knowing look. And the boy wonders if she is accusing him of something, noting that everyone in the school knows who she is. And he replies to her unspoken question that he doesn't know her. And she counters by asking what's wrong with knowing her name, pointing out the unfairness. And she continues to press him, saying he knows her name but she has no idea who he is as they just met. And she then jokingly suggests he could be a spy for the Demon King sneaking into the academy disguised as a student. And she finds it suspicious that he is out there all alone so late at night. And the boy thinks her accusation is ridiculous, and she suddenly makes a sharp sound as she pulls out some kind of weapon or gear. And he asks what she was doing out so late, and she explains she just finished training and working out. And he mentions he did the same, and when he asks what kind of workout, she simply says breathing exercise. And she notices something on his arm, perhaps scars, causing her to look closer and the boy to flinch. And he has some scars, and she recoils slightly from the bench with a quick movement. And she leans in again, making a subtle sound as she gets close to him. And she observes that it looks like he works hard. He agrees, saying of course, people don't understand the pressure of the Nibelung bloodline. And she explains that people in her bloodline are always expected to be the best and flawless, or they become a target for just one small mistake. And she then reveals that she is not the top scorer this year, which is the first time she has ever lost to someone in her life. And despite the loss, she admits it felt strangely liberating, but she wonders who beat her to become the top scorer. And she says she would love to meet the top scorer, which makes the boy look worried. And he asks if she has to go that far, and she bursts out, saying she was humiliated. And she complains that she had to beg her grandpa to find out who it was, and they are not even in her class, plus they skipped the speech. And she sighs, realizing she is sharing all this with a stranger she just met, and he asks why she is telling him all this. And she replies bluntly, because you look weak. And she explains that their family motto is to be unyielding to the strong and merciful to the weak. And she adds that all her classmates are unbearable, so she doesn't really have any friends. And the protagonist thinks this explains why she was cold to him before. And she says she should get going now, and he asks when she is going to tell him her name. And she refuses to tell him her name, and he lets her go with a simple yeah, bye. And just as she is about to leave, she stops and asks again when he will tell her his name, but he firmly says he won't, making her yell in frustration. And the screen shows the title of the series, The Academy's Sashimi Sword Master. And episode 8 is titled The Hero Always Arrives Late, and the scene shifts to inside the academy with some chatter in a lecture hall. And the protagonist reflects that, to his surprise, his academy life continued peacefully without any trouble. And he notes that Chloe seems to have made friends and settled into the class just fine. And he admits he has been busy avoiding her because she scares him, and sometimes her new friends look at him with disdain when they make eye contact. And however, he has stopped caring about people looking down on him for being a special entrant. And he mentions that he is not the only special entrant in the class, though there aren't many of them, and they all avoid each other, probably due to some inferiority complex. And he feels thankful he wasn't placed in the higher tier classes like the Star and Dragon classes. And he imagines the students in those higher classes must have split into factions and are busy with petty power struggles by now. And it was shocking even when he played the game, but now living it, the thought of being in those classes gives him chills. And he is also happy because he is getting proper meals now, and wonders what he should eat today while tapping on his desk. And a woman with green hair and glasses, likely Medea, appears, telling him the special meal should have been given to him earlier as a privilege for being the top scorer, and apologizes for the delay. And the protagonist is extremely grateful, holding up a faculty card that shines brightly, thinking that bowing to the director's office 3 times a day is not enough. And he thanks MAD and shows intense respect while thanking Medea. And he believes he has been doing his duties well as a student. And he thinks he hasn't done anything to negatively affect the main storyline and says, alright. And he plans to keep this up for the next 3 years, and if he manages that, he will be on track for the future he wants, letting out a small smirk. And the scene shifts to a bright, sunny day showing the grand exterior of the academy. And a voice narrates that 700 years ago, after the first human-demon war, the hero Valor Jokwin recognized the need to train the next generation of heroes. And he established the academy with his 7 disciples, and the teacher warns the class to study this part for the exam. And the protagonist thinks he already knows this, focusing on the founding hero, Valor Jokwin. And the story flashes back in black and white to Jokwin, the hero. And it is explained that Jokwin faced Lycan, the Demon King's right-hand man, who is also the commander of the First Legion. And this part of the story is about that epic confrontation. And the brutal battle went on for 20 years, shown through intense, dark imagery of fighting. And in the end, after a massive conflict, the hero emerged victorious. And however, a massive explosion of light is shown in the sky above a city. And although the hero won, he lost one of his arms. And following the battle, Jokwin could no longer fight, and screams echoed everywhere. And it was a chaotic war with no clear winner on either side. And fortunately, the first human-demon war ended in a truce. And to train the next generation, Jokwon founded the academy. And thus, a non-aggression pact was signed between the two races, securing 700 years of peace that still stands today. N in the present-day lecture, some students whisper that there is no way a war will happen in their lifetime, as they are more worried about tomorrow's party outfits. And the protagonist reflects that 700 years of peace has made everyone too comfortable. And he is the only one aware that this peace will soon be broken, and he wants to warn Medea about what is coming. N, but warning her would alter the canon route, and he has no idea what that would lead to. N, he recalls that Medea, despite always complaining about wanting to quit as director, was one of the first to notice something was about to happen. And it was thanks to her blessing of perception, and to protect her students, she was the first of the 7 stars to step onto the front lines. And the protagonist learned about her fate from reading the game's fandom wiki, which showed a disturbing, glitched image of Medea in distress. And the wiki stated Medea was the first of the 7 stars to fall in battle against the Demon King's army. And the class ends, and the teacher tells them to study for the midterms in 2 weeks. And students get excited that it's over, and a buzz starts as they leave. And the protagonist wonders what the commotion is about. And someone asks if that person arriving is him, and the protagonist checks his phone, which shows the date is May 5th. And he realizes that May 5th is the day the protagonist of this world, Leon van Reinhardt, joins the academy. And it is also the day the 700 years of peace begins to crumble. And students rush to see Leon van Reinhardt, who is called the protagonist of this world. And Leon van Reinhardt steps into the room, and the students are very excited to see him, expecting him to be placed in a high-tier stars class. And the protagonist recalls that May 5th is the day the hero joins. And Leon van Reinhardt makes his grand entrance, stepping into the academy. And people react with wow as Leon steps forward. And the protagonist and others look shocked as they realize this is the day Leon arrives, the one who will shatter the long peace. And Leon van Reinhardt is shown walking confidently. And it is stated that it is also the day the peace that lasted 700 years. And begins to crumble. The chapter starts by showing the main character, Leon Reinhardt, getting a lot of attention because he is very handsome. People call him a lucky bastard, and everyone notices how attractive he is. The narrator thinks that if this game world was rated for adults, Leon would probably be in trouble because so many women are drawn to him. But they try to keep their thoughts wholesome. The beautiful girls who like Leon are all very strong, like Rachel de Muret, the niece of the Spear Saint, and Ryojo Saki, the daughter of the Broken Bow. Another amazing girl mentioned is Ibel von Nibelung, the granddaughter of the Blade Emperor, leading the narrator to think how much he would like to be Leon. But the reality is that Leon, as the protagonist of Blessing of Miracle M, will be one of the first ones forced to fight. The protagonist wonders about fighting, remembering his past military service, and now he feels like he is facing forced conscription again. He thinks about how even the legendary hero Valor Jokwon only managed to seal the first Legion commander. This makes the protagonist question how incredibly strong the Demon King himself must be, worrying if this story will be one of those where the protagonist actually loses. However, the protagonist quickly reminds himself that this is Blessing of Miracle M, where the protagonist always sorts everything out, pointing out how good Leon looks. Someone approaches Leon, and the crowd is impressed just by looking at him. Then, the protagonist, who seems to be someone else, steps forward and excuses himself to talk to Leon. The protagonist confronts Leon, who has just arrived, while the other students look on, clearly surprised by the interruption. Leon, looking very pleased with himself, beams brightly at the protagonist. The protagonist stands still for a moment, then confirms that this is the world of Blessing of Miracle M, where the protagonist will handle everything. Meanwhile, Leon walks away with a group of admiring girls following him down a grand hall. The protagonist watches Leon go, thinking that he needs to remember that the protagonist will take care of everything, and then he comments on Leon's face. The protagonist admits that just one look at Leon convinced him of his greatness, but then he decides to interrupt, calling out to someone. He turns sharply, with a look of realization. The chapter title card appears, Episode 9, Auditor da Sicilia 1, and the scene shifts to the training hall at night. Inside the training hall, the protagonist is practicing with a wooden stick, swinging it with effort. After practicing, the protagonist sighs in relief and confirms something. He checks that his special power, his blessing, does not work with weapons that are not within the specific requirements. He realizes that he needs to learn at least the basic skills of swordsmanship, and then a girl named Chloe nervously asks him if he did something wrong. Chloe is holding his hand, and the protagonist thinks that he wants to say she almost killed him, but they are stuck together for the next year, so he has to be careful. The protagonist quickly says everything is fine, which makes Chloe relieved. He states that his priority is a peaceful school life, and making enemies is definitely not in his plan. Chloe expresses her relief with a big phew, and the protagonist wonders who this girl is, sensing something strange about her even when she wasn't fully conscious before. He senses a deep sorrow coming from the blade she holds, feeling as if she was begging to be saved. Yet, the bloodlust coming from her sword was so intense it made the protagonist's hair stand up. The narrator thinks that if Chloe truly intended to kill, she would be much more dangerous than the infamous Mao brothers. Chloe fidgets nervously and then asks if she can make dinner for him tonight, saying she would love to cook for him, though she admits she is nowhere near as good as him. Chloe looks at him with pleading eyes, which makes the protagonist feel bad about saying no. The protagonist imagines a dark scenario where accepting means ending up in a freezer, cut into pieces, just as Chloe intensely begs him with wide eyes. He thinks her eyes could guilt-trip anyone, and he would feel terrible refusing her. But then he remembers the danger, thinking that if he accepts, he might end up chopped into pieces. Suddenly, he has an idea and says, "Oh, I know." He suggests a favor instead of dinner. Chloe asks what favor, and he replies it's the only one he can think of for this situation. The protagonist asks Chloe if she could teach him how to use a sword. Chloe seems surprised that he is asking only her, but eagerly asks what it is. The protagonist thinks that this is good because he needed someone to teach him swordsmanship anyway, so it's not a bad excuse at all. He notes that Chloe is freakishly strong. He is glad that the survival guide videos he watched about dealing with a yandere were not a waste of time. Chloe asks when he arrived, and he says he just got there too, as they agreed to meet at 8. Chloe asks if she looks weird in her new outfit, and the protagonist notices her abs and muscles, realizing why she is so strong. He admits she is charming. He then offers her a wooden sword, asking if they are not going to use a real sword. Chloe is shocked, asking who uses a real sword for training when it is not a life-or-death duel. The protagonist explains they are just training and should use wooden swords so no one gets hurt, with cute patterns surrounding them while he says this. The protagonist feels the moment is sweet, but then he sees Chloe looking at him with a creepy smile, making him shiver slightly. Chloe agrees that he is so kind, but the protagonist prepares himself. He grips his wooden sword tighter, feeling a squeeze. He focuses, thinking about the swing, and then activates his blessing. A big flash happens as he checks the status window related to his blessing. He checks the details of the blessing of the blade god, noting that it's mostly fine, but there are many strange conditions listed, like a low synchronization rate of 2%. He wonders when he will unlock that. Sachin. Chloe asks if everything is okay, noticing him staring blankly. He apologizes, saying only he can see that window and he must have looked like he was staring into space. He tells Chloe they are training for the first time, so she should go easy on him. Chloe agrees instantly, saying she is all about hands-on experience, as actions speak louder than words. The protagonist reflects that to reach the top, more than just blood, sweat, and tears is needed, and the only reason he adapted so fast to the academy is because of the solid foundation he learned from a young age. As Chloe swings her stick powerfully, making a clack sound, the protagonist notes his hands are sweaty and his posture is bad, but his sword is pointed at her. Suddenly, Chloe moves so fast he is shocked. He wonders how fast she got, realizing she might have been holding back before. The weight behind her strike feels deadly. He feels one hit could kill him, and he sees no opening to counter. Chloe apologizes, saying she meant to go easy, but didn't think the wooden sword would break. A system message pops up confirming that the armament condition has been fulfilled. The protagonist stares at the breaking wooden sword, while Chloe looks surprised at the result. The system shows an error message related to the armament condition. The system also mentions adjusting the user's personality through inhibitory control, and then the morality grade decreases, followed by the activation of the blessing of the blade god as inferior form. The final image shows the protagonist with a cold, changed expression, holding what looks like a real, glowing blue blade, indicating a dramatic shift in his power level or demeanor. Suddenly, a message appears saying the armament condition is fulfilled, but quickly changes to a system error because the armament got damaged. A girl looks on in shock as a system message pops up about adjusting the user's personality through inhibitory control. As the main character walks, another system alert flashes, showing the morality grade has decreased, and his eyes glow with intense light against a red background. The screen goes black, displaying the ominous title, Blessing of the Blade God. Then, the scene flashes back to a video game style, where a person wakes up under a bright light, asking where they are. The person realizes they are in the kitchen and wonders if it was all a dream, remembering they were preparing a fish. The person decides to start working on the fish and looks at their available tools, a cleaver, a knife, and a sword, thinking about using the cleaver. However, the system gives an error. Item cannot be selected, making the character confused. When they try to select the sword instead, another error pops up for the wrong choice. The system confirms the wrong choice, and a mysterious voice tells the character to forget that and just continue what they were doing. The character concludes the only thing left is the sashimi knife. The voice confirms the sashimi knife is exactly what is needed to take the next step in life, but the character mentions that holding a sashimi knife always hurts, yet now, they feel no pain. As the character expertly holds the knife over the fish, they declare they feel great, and the mysterious voice assures them that all they need to do is embrace it. Dark, purple, shadowy hands appear from below, like a puppet master, pulling on red strings attached to an unseen figure. The puppet figure, dressed like a chef, holds a knife and exclaims it is time to create another masterpiece. Suddenly, the screen glitches, displaying inferior has been activated, and the character's eyes glow intensely blue as a powerful energy surrounds him. The scene shows a close-up of the character holding the glowing knife in this new powerful state. This brings up the chapter title card, Episode 10, Auditor da Sicilia 2. Back in the present moment of the fight, the girl calls out, asking Gioma if he is alright, looking terrified. Gioma is seen wobbling, and a small bubble shows the word as the scene zooms in dramatically on the action. A powerful blue energy blasts outwards as the girl reacts with shock. The powerful blue slash effect continues across the frame. The two clash violently, with Gioma hitting the girl's wooden staff with a loud crash. The girl is clearly struggling, holding on to the wooden staff as Gioma's intense presence is felt with a thump underfoot. The girl screams for Gioma to hold on, while Gioma executes a powerful slash, moving incredibly fast. Gioma is shown crouching low, unleashing a massive wave of energy that covers the ground around him. The attack impacts the girl, and a huge visual shockwave is shown. The girl is thrown into the air from the blast, landing hard, while her face shows pure terror and shock. She exclaims that Gioma has become a completely different person, showing utter disbelief. Gioma leaps forward, striking with a glowing blade in a wham attack that seems to break through her defense. The girl is knocked back, landing with a thud, clearly hurt and bracing herself. A close-up on Gioma shows him breathing heavily, his eyes glowing with unnatural, intense blue light. The girl internally notes that she pulled a muscle just evading that attack and now feels unable to move. Trembling and wobbly, the girl questions what happened to him and says she needs to call off the training, then weakly calls out Gioma's name as she coughs. She tries to tell Gioma to stop, but he is moving towards her with an overwhelming, aggressive posture, a huge zoom emphasizing his threat. The girl thinks she can't dodge the incoming attack, looking small against the background. She desperately pleads for Gioma to come to his senses, shouting his name repeatedly. A blinding column of bright yellow light descends from above, signifying the attack. Gioma's hand, glowing with power, delivers the powerful strike directly toward the helpless girl below. The attack hits, causing a massive impact, and Gioma's name flashes in angry red text, Gioma. The scene abruptly shifts back to the person in the kitchen, who snaps out of it, looking confused and asking what in the world. The character tries to slice the fish but finds it is dodging his knife impossibly fast, and someone or something tells him to come to your senses. He wonders if he is imagining the fish talking. As the character wonders if he is imagining things, he hears faint sounds of Gioma, and the fish seems to be speaking his name, startling the character who looks wide-eyed. The character tries to call out Giom, as a brilliant blue light flashes, suggesting the other world or vision is breaking through. The character seems to remember, confirming his identity, Gioma. Back in the vision, Gioma, now wearing his academy uniform and holding a small knife, stands rigidly, with red lines suggesting bindings around him. He realizes, then this must be as he sees a distorted image of Chloe calling out, and the system displays BZZZT errors. Chloe shouts for Gioma to come to his senses, looking panicked and terrified. The darkness breaks as Gioma shouts Chloe, and then his determined face is shown, stating I'm. The wooden staff breaks with a thunk, showing the impact. The staff falls away with a FSSSH sound, revealing the setting is an interior space, perhaps the academy hall. Jioma pulls the girl close in a defensive move, and she is shown crying, reaching out. She reacts with a slight bonk as Jioma nudges her head. Jioma smiles gently, asking Chloe if she is okay, while she looks utterly bewildered. Jioma suggests they call it a day, and Chloe wonders why he nudged her head, blushing slightly. Chloe asks Jioma if he is okay, and he thanks her for helping with his training, saying he will head out first. Jioma walks away through an archway, leaving Chloe standing alone. Chloe remains standing alone as the lighting changes to a dark, stormy atmosphere outside the building. The sky rumbles outside the Grand Academy building as Chloe stands alone, deep in thought. She reflects on Jioma's combat abilities since the exam, noting it goes beyond just strength and is almost eerie. Chloe concludes it doesn't look like skill but raw, unfiltered instinct, showing a flash of Jioma in his possessed state. She recalls activating all her blessings without thinking during the fight, but realizing she couldn't do anything against him. She emphasizes that all Jioma had was a half-broken wooden sword. Chloe is then confronted by her sister, who looks intimidatingly tall, saying she knew he was strong but asks if she is enjoying fooling around with a peasant. Chloe gets angry, realizing the person before her is her sister, and warns her not to call him that. The sister is revealed to be Nox's auditor, year 2 of the ordinary class, who scoffs at Chloe's defense. Nox asks if Jioma is his name, looking smugly at Chloe. Nox threatens that if Chloe keeps spending time with him, the auditors will eliminate him, and Chloe firmly tells her not to call him that. Nox asks if Jioma is his real name, while Chloe glares back defiantly. Nox warns that if Chloe continues, the auditor family will eliminate him, leaving Chloe looking saddened and silent. Nox further emphasizes that the entire auditor family wouldn't be enough to beat Jioma. Nox steps away, seemingly finished with the conversation, as Chloe stares at the ground. Nox murmurs, questioning the name Jioma. The scene shifts to Jioma's internal monologue, where he declares he needs to make one thing clear: the power he was given is not a blessing but feels like a curse. He recalls holding a knife in a memory, explaining he searched for a new weapon hoping to break free from this curse. But that power pursued him and seized control of his body, mocking his efforts as he stands there holding a glowing knife. He explains there was no pain, only an intoxicating euphoria mixed with overwhelming helplessness. He describes how the curse controlled him like a puppet on red strings while whispers of temptation echoed in his ears. The temptations urged him to slash, cut, and destroy everything, leading him to give in. The world shatters around him as he confesses, "I gave in, letting it consume me." He recalls a moment where he was bound by red strings, but then he heard Chloe's desperate cries. That name, the one he recognized as his own, Jioma Kang, seemed to pull him back. Her call brought the fractured world together, and so he hurled away the wooden sword. He threw away the sword that felt like an extension of his body because he feared losing himself forever if he didn't let go then. The Yanir who tried to kill him, Chloe, was the one who pulled him back to his senses this time. Yet, Chloe was also the reason his wooden sword broke in the first place, making him angry but also grateful to her. That's why he forgave her with a little nudge, leaving quickly, scared the blessing might activate again, making him wonder if he can avoid it forever. He labels the blessing of the Blade God as a power closer to a curse that takes his lifespan. This power was forced upon him after he was cast into a world where he didn't belong. He didn't ask for much, just a humble life. He just wanted to live a humble life. He thought he would only face a few ups and downs, but a loud boom signifies a realization. He realizes that something within him is fighting for control as he slowly walks up the stairs, looking intense. He confesses that something within him is slowly trying to swallow his sanity, shown by hands tearing apart his inner self with a crack sound. He states firmly, this isn't a blessing. It is a curse that wants to devour him, a power originating from the abyss.